Welcome to the Sacred Emergence Podcast. I'm your host, Michelle Wong, and I'm so thrilled that you're here. This is a place where you'll be guided to living your most aligned life so that your truest, most radiant self can emerge. We'll be jamming on topics ranging from spirituality, entrepreneurship, to wellness and lifestyle design, and everything in between that can support you to grow, evolve, and shine, all the while not taking ourselves too seriously. So if you're ready to step into your leadership, break through limiting beliefs, own all of who you are, and expand in abundance, grab yourself your faith cup of tea and let's dive in. Hello, everybody. Welcome to today's episode of the Sacred Emergence Podcast. I'm so excited for our guest today, Morgan Sachs. Her and I connected on Instagram. And so welcome, Morgan.
Hi, Michelle. Thank you so much. I'm really excited for our chat.
I know. Well, I have to say how I came across your account, and then I kind of I wouldn't say I stalked you, but I followed you for a while. There's another woman, I think her name is Rachel Lieberman. And she shared your app, your meditation app. And I was just like, oh, interesting. At that time, I don't know if we still call it a meditation app, but I just clicked on it and I was like, oh, this is cool. And so I just started following you. And then I learned more about you and your work. And I think you also do psychic work, psychic readings. I don't know, that's not the right word. More energy readings. You seem like a really cool person. And I was like, I wonder if she'd ever be interested in doing an interview. So here you are. Welcome.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I'm excited. It's so funny that you said that you just kind of watched for a while. You know, I'm a 6'2" projector in human design. And I've heard that people say that all the time. They're like, oh yeah, people are always just watching the 6 lines. And I just find that fascinating because I don't feel that way at all. I'm just people want to watch me. Okay. Really
yeah. And then we live we live in the same state. So I thought that was really cool. And I just, and I have to say I have a favorite meditation on your app. It's the Violet Flame one. I just love that one.
Oh yeah. That one is really powerful.
Yeah. So anyways, for those of you listening, you need to check out the HealingMind app.
Yeah. It's been really fun to create. It is one of those things where, again, kind of going back, I just love talking about human design, but as a projector, it was one of those things where I was invited to create it. And it's one of those things where I've noticed that when I just really sincerely wait for those invitations, it really just works so much better than just having the idea and being I'm going to create it like you, like a manifestor. It's just so different, you know?
Yeah, so different. And I love especially because you said you're a 6'2", the two, you just have these innate gifts that it's just people see it, and then the invitation comes.
Yeah, it's really interesting too when I get invited in to do podcast episodes, because I'm always I know they're going to ask me how do you do what you do? And it's just so hard to explain because I just naturally can do it. I have a Reiki certification that I got in 2013, but I'm not doing Reiki. I'm doing just my own little version of energy healing. And so I'm I don't really know how to explain it. You just kind of have to experience it to really, really get it. But I have gotten kind of good at explaining it. So
yeah, well, that was my question is how did you start doing what you're doing? What was your path to to where you are now?
Yeah, well, it's kind of a windy road. But I started out after college. I have my master's in accounting and I was a CPA. And so I did financial analysis for my first job out of college, which is totally different than obviously what I'm doing now. But then I ended up developing a life-threatening autoimmune disease, and it kind of forced me to take a look at my life and just be okay, this obviously isn't working. My body is screaming at me, no, this is not right for you. And so I took some time to kind of really figure out what I wanted to do. And I really had no idea. And I was very, I guess, closed off to my own inner wisdom at that point. And so I just decided to start my own personal training business because I was really into health at that time. I healed myself naturally from the autoimmune disease. And yeah, so I just kind of went on my journey of just like figuring out, trying different things. And at one point, I went back to work full time, and I was working for a consulting firm. And we moved and we had a son and like all these things. And I was just like, oh, I really just want to stay home. And so I ended up staying home with my son for a couple of years. And just randomly one day, I was laying in bed with him, and as he was going down for a nap, and I just had all of a sudden this being like showed up in my mind's eye. And that, I had received energy healing myself. I had, gotten Reiki certified. I've dabbled in like human design, like all these different things. So along that way, I really had experienced a lot of different things, but I never really thought like, oh, I want to be an energy healer. And so when this showed up in my awareness, it was pretty surprising, but it was very peaceful. Like it didn't scare me or anything like that. And it showed me this like stone rod, and like a banana, the sides started peeling off, and there was like a beautiful blue, almost like a wand in the middle. And my mom was actually staying with us at the time. She was about to go on a trip and she wasn't feeling well. And she was like, oh, do I have to cancel my trip? Like she was really unsure about what to do. And this being basically like guided me on how to use this wand on her. And I was like, okay, so this is what we're doing, I guess. And yeah, I saw like stuff coming off of her, and just all these cool things were happening. And after it was finished, I kind of asked in my mind, like, what is this? And I heard Hoya Ku. And I was like, okay, I'm totally going to Google that after all of this. And, but afterwards, my son fell asleep, and I went out to where my mom was. And I was like, Mom, how are you feeling? And she was like, oh my gosh, I feel amazing. I like just texted my friend. I'm so ready for my trip. And it was just like, yeah, like an amazing healing. And so I told her what happened. And basically from then on, I guess it was an activation, because from then on, I literally would have like people that I knew come into my mind, and I could see their energy body. I could see, what was going on. And I would text them and be like, are you like having headaches, or like, what's going on for you? And they're like, yes, how did you know? I would say, well, I think I can help you. And so I just started practicing and like doing stuff with my friends. And then eventually I just was like, okay, I guess I'm really good at this. And so I started offering it, and the rest is history. But I did look it up on Google, and there was nothing on Hoya Ku at all. So who knows?
Oh my gosh, that is so fascinating. So you were literally just like chilling with your son and you just saw this being.
Yeah.
Wow.
I know, it's really cool. And in human design, I have outer vision. So it's kind of neat to just see. It feels more like inner vision because I see things with my eyes closed. But yeah, it's really interesting.
So cool. And then I guess like, because you were saying like when people ask you how you do what you do. So like I'm like, when I hear your meditations, I'm like, how does she come up with so much content every week? Like, I don't know. Do you feel pressure to have to like figure, oh gosh, I got to create content for the next meditation drop? Like, do you ever feel that?
Not really. I think each meditation, I just sit down and I just start talking, and I just start seeing, like I'm tuning into everybody who's a member of the app now or in the future. And yeah, I just start seeing what I see and saying what comes through. So it's just a very I love it because I end up feeling amazing at the end of it too. So yeah, it's nice.
I have a random question about the light language, because whenever I hear it, like at first I'm always like, I don't even like what, like like the practical side of me, and then I'm like, okay, I'm just going to like receive it, I guess. But I'm curious, like what, like how that experience is for you. And do you feel something different come through when you speak the light language?
Yeah, it was really cool. The first time I heard it was on what's her name? Ashley Wood's podcast, Align Within. And the first time I heard it, I just like burst into tears because I just felt like I was home. Like it literally just felt like home to me. Like I'd never have felt that before. And again, I was just kind of, I feel like there's been all these things that are just like awakening in me. It's not like I've had to learn how to do it. It's like it's already been there. And I just somehow, I needed it to be like shown to me that it was possible or that it exists, you know? And yeah, so from then on, I literally just like that night, I was like, I think I can do this. And so I just like sat in meditation and I just started channeling it. And yeah, I feel it in my body too. It just feels like all my cells are just opening up, you know? How does it feel to you when you listen?
I think like a part of me, I have to get over the fact that like at first, because I like that it's longer. Like it's not like, okay, this is just like a 30-second clip, right? It's like, so I feel like my body has to settle into it. And then it just becomes meditative. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's my
It does.
experience.
It takes you out of your conscious mind and more just into like a receptive mode. And because it's literally, you know, the thing that I really notice in like the spiritual world is that people tend to get really attached to the idea of something, or, you know, it's like even, and this may be like a super like out there perception. I have an Aquarius moon and I'm a 6-2. So like my perspectives are sometimes a little bit, I don't know, different. And even like concepts like angels or even like that being, you know, some people would be like, because I see past life energy all the time in energy healing sessions too. So people tend to get really attached to the concept of it. Like, oh, in a past life, I was this kind of person, or like there are these angels like out there that are separate from me that are just like, you know, kind of elusive and hard to understand. But I find that, and even like with light language, people will be like, oh, you're channeling this language from, you know, the universe or like whatever. And a lot of times it's something that we can't actually comprehend. Like it's literally just energy. So sometimes people will be like, well, what is it that you're channeling? And I really tried to figure it out for a long time. Like, you know, is this some sort of like ancient language like that I knew at one point along the way, you know?
Yeah.
And I think the more that we can just like relax into like the energy of something without fully having to understand it, I think that's better because it limits our experience when we try to put all these like barriers around what something is or what something isn't. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it totally does. And actually, as you know, I was just thinking about what you were asking, like, how do I receive it? Like, you know, and actually I do get chills. Because it's different and I think it's just new. But yeah,
Yeah.
like I do settle into it and I'm just like, okay, it's just like very like soothing. And then I honestly, when I listen to meditation, is usually because it's like maybe 3 or 4 in the morning and I can't fall back asleep. And so the meditations just kind of help me lull me back to sleep. So it's actually nice
Yeah.
that I don't understand it. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, that's awesome. I love that.
Yeah. So cool. And so with like the work that you do, I'm so fascinated because I don't feel like I have the gift. But then I also remember when I was, you know, I remember you were saying, well, and I know this, but you know, you're saying how everybody can develop the skills to be more intuitive. And I mean, I'm intuitive in my own way, but I don't have that knack of like being able to, I guess, read someone's energy from across the iPhone. So I'm just curious, like,
I don't know. I guess it's like it's so natural to you that it's like, well, I don't know how I do it. I just do it. But
Yeah. So are you asking like, how does it work? Like, how does the energy?
yeah, and just like, yeah, I'm just so fascinated by just because I don't have that gift.
Yeah. Well, I think it really is interesting because, well, I have, again, in human design, I have the defined spleen. So that's like it's just, I just have so much awareness, and that's my authority is splenic. And, yeah, I really believe that it's so much to do with, our imagination, and like really trusting our imagination, because as kids, like we really do have strong imaginations. Like everything starts up here, right? Like you can be anywhere in the world as a kid, and it can be totally whatever you want it to be, right? Like you can imagine it as you're out on the ocean in a pirate ship. Like it's just so strong to have that ability. And then we learn as kids, like, well, that's not real. Like it's just your imagination, you know? But from my perspective, our imagination is actually what's real. And then everything manifests from that. So like the imagination is on like the quantum plane. And then what shows up in our reality is based on what we believe is possible in our imaginations. And so it's kind of like that quote from Harry Potter, what Dumbledore says, and I'm probably not going to say it perfectly, but he says something like, just because it's in your imagination doesn't mean it's not real, you know? Mm-hmm. And so I think with this energy healing stuff, I just really trust my imagination. I just really trust what I'm seeing in my mind's eye. And it takes practice. Like I've had to do a lot of sessions and hear people's feedback and their results to be like, okay, yeah, I really can trust this, because it's not like I'm imagining from at least myself in the past, hearing people talk about like, oh, I can see auras, or I can see, these different beings or whatever. I thought like it was just plain as day. Like you can just see it like you're looking at a TV screen or something. But for me personally, it's a little blurry. Like it definitely doesn't look like what we see with our eyes, like in the 3D. For me, it's just this like knowing, I guess. It's really hard to explain, but I think that if someone is really wanting to practice or start, like just really pay attention to what your imagination is experiencing, like when you're with a person, like what is it the first thing you think about when you see them, or what are some of the thoughts or body sensations or whatever that shows up in your awareness as you're with a person. And whatever your intuition is about it, or whatever your imagination is about it, it's usually correct. We just kind of be like, oh no, what am I thinking? That's ridiculous. Because I'll come in contact with people all the time, like the grocery store or just around, and I'll have these insights of like, oh, they're going through a divorce, or, there's just different things that pop in. And if we can just like pay attention to those tiny little awarenesses that we have, then that's kind of where it starts.
I love that. I think it's exactly what you said. We so dismiss our imagination because it's kind of been shut down as we get older. But it's like we need our creativity and imagination for like a better future. So yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah. It is really powerful, and it's fun. Like I think that we're meant to be having fun. I don't think we're meant to be struggling and suffering, and whatever we can imagine as possible, I think that's really, really awesome. If we can let ourselves actually imagine it,
Yeah. Do you find like when you work with people, there's common themes? Like if you're it's like if you had to give like a nugget of wisdom for people, like you see like a lot of similar things maybe?
Yeah, that's really a good question. I tend to see a lot of like past life scenarios where people are basically like hurt in some way or like shut down for their creativity. Like that's a really big thing that I see. And it's also really interesting with past life energy, just to kind of go off on a little tangent here. People sometimes think like, oh, I, as this one person, had this one particular past life. And what I've seen, at least over doing a lot of these sessions, is that it's actually much more like an ocean where the collective consciousness, whatever traumas exist that haven't been resolved, that's kind of what the past life energy is. It's like you whatever you come in with, whatever unresolved trauma or unresolved situations that come in with your particular energy body, like a cup in the ocean. Like when you're born, you're just like a little cup of water, and whatever little particles are in your energy body, it's not that it was one particular soul that had this experience. So when we heal something in a past life that's in our energy, it's also actually healing it in everyone else who has that energy in their body as well. So it's just really powerful to do that. And the other thing too is like, the other really big one that I've noticed recently is like people feeling safe to like stand up against what is wrong. And so yeah, I think honestly, like it's just really, really exciting that people are turning more and more into energy work to like address issues, because it's really the basis of a lot of things. And so as we're like we're literally healing collective traumas from many, 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 many years ago, like there's been stuff with like Cleopatra and stuff with the Holocaust that I worked with. And yeah, I just feel so grateful that I get to be a part of this because it makes such a big difference.
I love that. So, I mean, it brought up two questions for me. So one, specifically with past life, I love what you said. It's almost like an ocean where it's a cup of water. And then this is like, you bring it into this current reincarnation or whatever. So it might not even just be your direct, like, I don't know, your direct soul. Like, is that what you're saying? Yeah. Like, maybe, yeah, because like it's a big concept, past life. A lot of people might not like past life, but I love that it's like it can be like a reflection of just the energies from past lifetimes. And it's like we agreed to work with it in this lifetime. So I love what you said about the trauma piece because I mean, I feel like this is like right now in our physical body, this is how we can heal from trauma. Like,
yes. Yeah. And it's really interesting too, because we all experience trauma as kids in some form or another. And really when we're able to have that energy witnessed, and like processed, we can, obviously a lot of people are working on like their childhood traumas and things like that these days, which is amazing. And we can do the same exact thing for past life traumas. It's like things do continue to carry on if you don't process them. So it's really, really, really helpful.
And I also love what you said about just energy work. Like, it's so interesting because like science, hasn't necessarily like found evidence, and because of that, then it's whatever whatever like term that they use to diminish the work. But like I mean, I love your perspective. Like with energy work, I feeling like you're working at a different layer, right? Not the physical body, but if you can clear the things on the energetic level, then it can start impacting the physical, because it takes longer in the physical body. But I would love just how you see it.
Yeah, I see it the same way that you just explained it. It's like, again, almost like going back to imagination versus physical reality. Like it's just the energetic thing that we can't see. Just because we can't see it doesn't mean it doesn't exist. It's just vibrating at a level that our eyes can't see. And yeah, it's like that's the foundation of everything. And the physical is always the last expression of it. So when we work with like our emotional body or our mental body or etheric or any of those layers, then yeah, it has a ripple effect into the physical. And like I have an example just last week. This little girl, I love working with kids too. It's always so fun because their bodies are just like so responsive. And she was having like so much trouble sleeping. And I basically saw like these holes in her energy field, just like all these energy leaks, like major. And we were able to kind of, put her energy field back together, and it was like really solid. And then the next day her mom was like, oh my gosh, she's like sleeping amazing. She's napping again. Like it just doesn't even take long, like it's just yeah, we don't have to understand, like from my perspective, I don't feel like we have to understand it to receive the benefit of it,
Yeah, I love that. That's awesome. Like, I love that. Well, I love that you can see that and like in a child, and that's amazing.
Yeah, I think it's so important to work with kids because when we do this at a young age, it changes their entire trajectory. Can you imagine like some of the stuff that we were dealing with as kids? If we would have gotten support in this way, like everything would have changed, So cool.
Yeah. And I love and then they get exposure just to like, oh, energy work. And so it's like, it doesn't have to be this weird thing as they get older. Yeah.
Yeah. It's so true.
Oh.
It's so fun.
Well, is there anything that you want to share that I haven't asked? Like just like things that you're working on that, anything. Just put you on the spot.
Yeah. I can't really think of anything in particular. It's so funny too, like just noticing the difference between, I'm sure you've noticed the difference between interviewing like maybe generators or projectors. Like, yeah, I guess I've just noticed like as a projector being so conditioned in the response thing, like when there's, for me particularly, like if there's not a particular question that someone wants guidance on, I don't really have very much to say, like I don't have much of a response. Like unless you want me to like guide you into something, then yeah, I don't know. There's nothing really there.
Oh, I love that. I love that. Well, I was curious, like how did you get into human design? Because I know you talk about it in your work and then you're familiar with it and you're able to see that I was a manifestor, which I don't even know how you can tell. It was literally like, I mean, it was a while ago, but it was literally like, I just asked you a basic question because it's limited character count. And you're like, actually, are you a manifestor? And I was like, what the heck? Anyways, but like, yeah, human design and your work with it.
I think I first heard about it on Lacey Phillips' podcast, To Be Magnetic. And like, was it like 2019, maybe? I don't know. And yeah, I just started looking it up and I just felt like, oh my gosh, that makes so much sense. And yeah, I was doing human design readings for a little while. But I just find it really interesting and really helpful, just to like, I always ask people their birth details before an energy healing session. And sometimes I look it up. Sometimes I don't. Sometimes I can just kind of tell if someone is like before the session, if they're pretty misaligned, like people will start like coming in, like I'll have awarenesses of them before their session a lot of times. And yeah, sometimes I can tell like, oh, I think I need to know what this person's human design is because I can tell they're a little like very misaligned from their design or whatever. So it just helps me to kind of get a sense for their energy and how it expresses from that. But I love talking about this because it's just so fun. I love what I do.
Yeah. Can you are you able to see auras? Because I've always wondered, because you know how in human design there's like it's the aura, right? It's the energy type and the aura. And every time people talk about aura outside of human design, it's always like the big generator aura. I'm like, but do people see like manifestor auras and projector auras? So do you see that or?
I don't like with my eyes open, I don't see anything different. Like it's just normal. But when I close my eyes, and a lot of times it's also a body sense too. Like I can feel the chakras in my body. Like it's almost like my body becomes the body of the client. And that's really what guides me in a session too. Like I'll be able to feel the emotional energy in their solar plexus. I'll be able to feel in myself when their sacral chakra begins to open, or I just notice in my body where my awareness is being drawn. It's like, oh, there's something in their knee, and then after like one session I had with a client, I was like seeing so much in her shoulder, and like almost like it was like dislocated. And so we like repaired it, within the energy session. And afterwards, she's like, how did you know that? Like I dislocated my shoulder. Like she didn't even tell me about it beforehand. And so it's just really cool. I just think it's so fun. I just love it.
You're like the energy doctor. Oh, wow. Do you find if you feel it in your body, like, does it get released then so that you don't take it on?
Yeah. So we don't stop until the person's energy is like good, and their body will always let me know. That's the cool thing about it too, is that I don't ever go in with an agenda. I don't have like a system where I'm like, okay, this is what we're going to do first. It's like literally just whatever their body is the guide. So whatever needs to happen in that session, we can have sort of like a preconceived idea of like, this is what I want to work on. And that kind of guides the background of it. But I always just let the body guide the way. And I can always tell when it's finished, because I'll end up seeing like their light body, like the color of them, their natural essence. Or sometimes it'll show up like an animal. Like sometimes I have this one client who at the end, every time I know we're done, because she like turns into a cat. And I'm just like, okay, we're back at her essence, and okay, we're done, it's really, really cool. And then, the other thing that we hear a lot of people talking about, like protect your energy, and, especially as a energy healer, being tuned in, I guess, to all of that. But for some reason, I don't feel the need to do that, because I don't feel like I'm taking on anything. I'm just aware of it and like shifting things. And, like I obviously have my own practices that I do for myself like every day. But yeah, I think sometimes people get this message that they need to be like super protective of themselves and other people's energy. And it's like, if you literally just let yourself fully experience it, and then it doesn't get trapped, So like, it's when we're like, oh, get away from me, or like clenching ourselves around people, that's when it does get stuck. But if we allow ourselves to just like fully experience what we're experiencing, then there's nothing to like clear or protect against. Does that make sense?
And I also like, because you work with the body until you feel like, okay, like it's complete. Like, so it feels like you're not like, there's a healthy ending where, assuming it also feels good in your body. Yeah,
for sure. Yeah, it's awesome. It is tiring though. Like I can't do a million sessions a week. Just putting that much focus, concentration. Like I joke with my friends, they're like, what's so tiring about it? I'm like, well, I'm traveling through time and space, like. So yeah, like I in that way, I still have to be like mindful of my energy, but
yeah, that was my kind of follow-up in terms of just as a projector, like for your like management of energy and self-care. Like, do you, like when you started learning about human design and like, embodying it, did you find like before you were like go, 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 and as a project, like, and now it's like where you are now, like how has that shifted for you? Because I have some projector folks just kind of struggling, or I don't know if struggling is the right word, but like the conditioning of the generator world, right? There's always this pull of having to be consistent somehow, or having to show up in a certain way all the time. And there's almost this guilt of not doing. So I'm just wondering, for your experience, like, have you pulled back and your self-care?
Yeah, it took me a while. I think that was part of the reason I got the autoimmune diseases, is because I really was like pushing myself to be like, as consistent and energetic and like this much output consistently as everyone else, and it really has taken me until I would say the last year to really understand how it works for me individually. Because I noticed, like, just because I have an open sacral doesn't mean that I don't have energy. It just means it's inconsistent, right? So I will have these bouts, and I have a defined root as well. So I'm technically what's called an energy projector. And my friend Rachel from Pure Generators, she says energy projectors are like the busiest people that you'll ever meet. Like, for some reason, we just can like do with that open sacral. You experience this too. Like, you have so much flexibility in your energy. You can literally do something whenever you want to. Like, you don't have to wait for this like inner response to turn the engine on, And so, but I've noticed, like, I'll receive these like creative bursts of energy where I just have tons of creative energy. And then I experience like the burnout after that. And that's the period of rest. Whereas I used to kind of judge myself and be like, oh, why do I have this pattern of like, do, crash, do, crash. And I think that's literally just how it works. And when we don't allow ourselves to actually rest during those crashes, then that's the issue, like you keep pushing when you don't actually have the energy anymore. But there's nothing wrong, I don't think, with getting into that state. Like, you've used up the energy that you were given and now you just rest.
I like that perspective, because sometimes I'll go hard without even I'm like, oh, I overdid it. Okay. I'm out. Yeah.
Yeah.
So.
I know it gives you some freedom. Like, we don't have to judge ourselves for our individual way of doing things,
Yeah. Yeah. For folks who want to get to know you more and maybe check out your app and work with you, what's the best way?
Yeah, I would say just go to the website, thehealingmindapp.com. And it's a free app. You can just download it and start listening to the meditations. It's literally like receiving energy healing in the comfort of your own home, just like by plugging in your earplugs or your earphones. So that's really cool. There's a premium version to unlock like all of the meditations, but you can just get started right away. And there's also a link there to book a one-on-one session if that's something that you want. But yeah, that's the best place.
Awesome. And do you have other upcoming works or anything that might be brewing that you want to share? Or you might not, but.
Yeah, we're going to be doing a in-app event pretty soon. We did a like 25-day energy upgrade event in December that went really well. People really loved that. And so I'm going to do another one of those coming up. I don't know exactly when yet, but that's in the works.
Amazing.
So it's basically like, yeah, a new meditation every day. And people really like that, just having something like almost like being told what to do, it's like, you just listen to this one today,
Oh, that's awesome. Okay. Well, all the links will be in the show notes. And I so appreciate your time. I'm so glad we were able to make this work. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you so much for having me. I loved talking with you.
To help you feel more supported and nourished in your body and nervous system, you're invited to download the free I Am Supported meditation in the show notes. May you feel grounded in who you are as you become the fullest expression of yourself. Thank you for listening to the Sacred Emergence podcast. Make sure you subscribe so you don't miss an episode, and thank you in advance for sharing with those who can benefit. Until next time.